Elisabeth Elliot. Her husband was killed by the Wadani tribe, and she went on to become a missionary to the very men who killed her husband, leading many to Jesus. And she said this: "One does not surrender a life in an instant. That which is lifelong can only be surrendered in a lifetime." Sounds a little bit like pick up your cross, deny yourself daily, follow me. You can't surrender one time. I know myself. I did great yesterday. How am I doing today? How am I going to do tomorrow? How much sleep did I have? How am I feeling? Have I paid attention to the things that God has called me to? Or am I ignoring them? Or how long has it been since I checked in on how my soul is doing before the Lord? Because maybe one day turns into 1 week. Maybe that turns into 3 months, a year, 10 years. How long before we want to open up and let the light in? He wants to heal us. He wants to change us. He wants to equip us and call us. Guys, we can't change a nation if we're just going to keep living with the 7 deadly sins and hanging out with them all the time. We can't point fingers at the world and at the same time, got some stuff back there. If we want a nation to change, we have to change. Did you know that God doesn't have to use us, but he chooses to? But we got to be willing to surrender. Got to be willing to give ourselves to him. If we're not willing to do that, guys, God changed the entire world with 13 dudes and some prostitutes. I'm serious. Read the book. We're like 20 people. And we're standing in this building because of them. 20 people. Grew pretty quick, but I think we got a lot more than 20. How many of us can change our workplace? Change how we're living in our marriage, change our families, our homes, our friendships, our relationships through one conversation with God. One moment of surrender, one moment of yielding to the power of the Spirit in your life can shape and change everything about you and everything about me. And that passage that we read from Peter, where he pulls in all of those fish, and then he says, "Lord, I'm a sinner, get away from me." Just before that, Jesus shows up and he asks him to toss the nets on the other side of the boat, and his response was, "At thy word." Are we going to be that? If Jesus asks something of us or calls us to do something or highlights sin in our lives through the power of his word, is our response at thy word? I'll give that over to you. I'll surrender this. I'll yield myself to you. I care more about my marriage. I care more about my family. I care more about my coworkers. I care more about my neighbor. We're living in a me, myself, and I generation. People living in the lust of the flesh, doing all the things that they want. One surrendered person can change a generation. Story after story in the book, also the Old Testament. You should read it. That's the invitation this morning.